All right, guys. So now that the initial visceral reactions of the George Floyd protests and all that stuff has kind of calmed down a little bit, not suggesting that Black Lives Matter as the movement has lost its momentum, but I'm just saying the visceral reactions, like defund the police and things of that nature have kind of started to become a bit less um, outspoken or given less attention in the media, at least from what I can tell. Um, and so that being said, I wanted to give a few points on what I think should be done to help um, reduce, prevent police brutality. And I don't think that defunding the police, although it's a nice sounding initial visceral reaction, actually achieves the end goal of less police brutality and fair treatment by the police. So I've got a few points here. The first is, we always talk about, or Republicans always talk about how the approach to American people is, they got to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. That's what they say to struggling communities that don't have the necessary resources and a level playing field to compete with the rest of America. But now, the same people that hate the Republicans for saying that about people are saying that about policemen and about police officers, and they're saying, guys, no, you know what? We've given them too much money. I think we should just cut their budgets. They have to figure it out all by themselves, and then that'll solve the issue. Of course, it won't. This kind of issue needs real structural reorientation, um, reallocation of funds to better, more, to better priorities and things of that nature. So let me digress. Some people, I'm sure this is a minority, but some people suggest just removing, you know, um, patrol officers altogether. Have no police on the streets, checking, on highways, giving out speeding tickets, or making sure your people are driving things of that nature. They want to end the police completely. Now, this is an interesting model, and we only have a single example of this around the world, and it's Costa Rica. And got some bad news for those people. The crime rate in Costa Rica is one of the highest in the world, and they have no police. So I don't know if ending patrol officers and that whole kind of thing is really the correct approach to this, and I think Costa Rica is a good example of why it isn't. But anyway, I want to talk about what I think is right and what I think should be done. And I don't think it necessarily means funding the police more, but it certainly doesn't include defunding them, especially in the short term. So there's a few things. First off, I don't think every situation needs to be responded to with armed police officers in squadrons of six. Like, if my neighbor over there, he goes, he's at a party all night, his music's way too loud, he's disturbing public order or peace or whatever it's called. I don't think he needs fucking a SWAT team to pull up, all with fucking assault rifles, automatic weapons, pulling up to his house saying, fucking gunning him down. I think with that you can just get, one or two, maybe three, just police officers who are not armed, just in their little badge, and they're just gonna go to their house and guys, you got to turn the music, or there's gonna be some consequences. So then they turn on their music, and then everything's fine. But no, of course, no. That's not how it has to work. They're always trying to protect themselves, so they have to have a bunch of guns on them. And I understand it in a society where everybody has a gun, but in certain situations, it's not required, and I think it kind of like lessens the trust between those communities and the police when even to like the smallest response, they have to come with a bunch of guns and start pointing it at people. So that's the first thing. Second thing is not necessarily to have a certain number of police, but to have less police, react to less things, and have them paid better. So you have a much more competitive kind of route to being a police officer. So then you have far better policemen, far better trained policemen, far better skilled socially, far better at de-escalating situations, but you have fewer but better. So it's the classic quality over quantity kind of approach here, and I think because the 80% of the arrests made by police officers today are for non-traffic related misdemeanors. Why do we have 80% of police officers wasting their time on these little petty things that nobody gives a shit about? Because let's not forget, the point of the police is to react to criminals, get those people arrested, and as a result they go to jail, and as a result of this, the idea is that you have less criminals and so you have less crime, right? Simple kind of logic. It makes sense initially. The problem is when you have 80% of arrests being done for little misdemeanors, like, I don't know, going through some kid's at school's bag and seeing if there's marijuana in it, and then arresting him, there's not going to be less criminals. There's going to be the same amount of marijuana. The war on drugs, by the way, kills thousands of police officers a year, and for what? For nothing. There aren't less drugs. You have to just legalize drugs, in my opinion. But anyway, that's where I've already made a video on that. If you want to check that out, legalize all drugs. That'll help us quite a bit. But that brings me on to my next point, which is the criminal code. Why are we making police officers focus on these little petty crimes? They have nothing to do, and so they just go. All right, guys, we're gonna go into the community, find a few little drug dealers, and then fucking get them in jail. For what, guys? Like, it's not gonna. It just increases the ability and for police brutality and for bad encounters with police officers, and for no kind of real decrease in crime. You have people being arrested for being like little small scale drug dealers. I think that's kind of useless. And then finally, one of the larger, more important points is to have transparency. So you have, with these smaller amount of police officers that are well trained, both in combat and also in de-escalation, you are able to highlight those officers that have done something wrong, have it on a public database, have the investigations to these incidents being on public databases, and also having an independent kind of organization that assesses the actions of police officers and deems whether they are worthy or not. Because listen, if the job of being a police officer is a high-paying job, it means you're going to be wanting to do well. Because you know that if you don't do well one day and you get fucked over because you hit a guy by accident, you fucking knelt on a guy's knee, well, there's fucking thousands of people waiting outside to get that same job that you have right now, and they for sure are not going to be stepping on kids' knees, things of that nature, where it's like, when you have real competition and you know that you have a good job, you enjoy your job, and you get paid well for it, you're not going to try and fucking fuck around. You want to keep that. You're going to try to do that job way better than you have before. And so these kind of transparency boards allow people to better trust in their police officers, and the fact that it's all public means, we can all see what's happening. And so it's these kind of steps that I think will be more substantive in achieving better police departments, and not having this just waste of resources, a militarized police that sometimes looks like an invading army, far too many incidents of brutality. And listen, the reason I think a lot of these things happen is because these officers, they're literally not trained at all. Like, they go into situations after like 6 months of little training. They don't know what to do in these situations, so they panic. They act on instinct, and then as a result, people get harmed. And so when you have less police officers, but more trained police officers, they're able to respond to more situations with, planned, well thought out responses that don't lead to such catastrophic consequences. Like, what do you do when a guy runs away from you? You don't fucking shoot him in the head, do you? Just simple things that I think, if we're able to train officers in that kind of way, and have being a police officer being a well-paid, competitive job, nobody's going to want to fuck around, because they know they have to do their job best as possible to keep their nice little salary going. And that's kind of how the world works. And I think these changes will help prevent police brutality and the inequities within the policing system. But on the initial point of defund the police, listen, you might have no police officers, and you might have less police. Sorry, when you say defund the police and you say you're gonna have less police officers, you might have less police officers, but they're probably still going to want. There's probably still going to be as culpable to commit bad, brutal acts on people when they don't have the necessary resources and aren't aware of how to handle situations. Whereas with what I'm trying to propose is you don't just cancel police, you help them get better. Like with communities, you don't cancel poor communities and say, it's inherently bad. You say, we're going to try and fix you. We're going to try and help you out, guys. We're going to give you the necessary resources to learn, to give you opportunities in life. The same way with police, I want to give police opportunities to improve, to regain their trust with communities and help them out by giving them these resources that they need to be prepared for situations, and also help keep them accountable. So yeah, those are my thoughts on police brutality and reform. If you have disagreements or alternative solutions, I'm open to hearing those. As long as you don't hit me with the, "Oh, you fucking Nazi." Otherwise, I'm fine with that.